So this is a video looking at topic 3.1 for anyone who's doing the Unit 3 Edexcel GCSE Business Studies exam on the 6th of June 2018. It's going to be an hour and a half exam, split into sections A, B and C, multiple choice, short answers and extended answers. This is the specification for topic 3.1. So these are the things that you need to know in order to be able to access Unit 3. Or topic 3.1. So first of all, what is marketing? Anticipating, identifying and satisfying customer needs. So the other way that you can think about satisfying is to meet the customer needs. So anticipate, identify and meet, in which case you've got the acronym AIM. Anticipate, identify, meet customer needs. Easiest way to remember. What you've got to try and avoid if there's any definition of marketing coming up is that you avoid saying that it's selling or that it's the marketing mix or it's advertising. It's an inaccurate. It's about finding out what the customers want, identifying potential needs, and then meeting those customer needs. That's marketing. You need to be aware of the methods of market research that exist, but we're not going to spend ages on this. These are ones that are sort of listed across the Unit 1 and the Unit 3 specification. What you need to be able to do is to identify which of them are split into primary, secondary, quantitative and qualitative, and it's like this. Okay, I think what's really important to remember here is that surveys and questionnaires fit into both quantitative and qualitative. So from a definition point of view, they would be either quantitative or they would be qualitative. So two methods of collecting quantitative market research that Nintendo could use. These are the ones that have just popped up as quantitative, and we've got surveys, questionnaires, internet. Always try and look for things which are a little bit further apart, so something like surveys and national statistics would be really good. Now, a classic question in the sense that this really tests whether you understand the benefit of market research data. So this is where we're looking for those points, develops and developments. So if you want to pause the video and now I'll flash up the mark scheme in a second. So if you look down here, the perfect mark, perfect answer. Find out what the customers want, change the product or change the marketing mix, and then outcompete rivals as your final point, or you will sell more. My favourite answer to the market research is find out what they want, change the product, you will sell more, or you will increase revenue. Really common, typical type question, that one. So, advantages and disadvantages of the different types of market research. So if we look at primary first, it's specific but very expensive. Secondary, cheap and quick but not very reliable because other people have carried out the data. Quantitative, easy to interpret because it's just numbers, but it lacks detail. We don't understand why. Qualitative, it's very detailed, it tells us why, but can be very expensive and difficult to interpret. Explain how qualitative market research might allow Apple to move its marketing mix. Keywords here being qualitative and Apple and marketing mix. If you want to pause the video, have a little go and then have a look at the answer. So if we come straight down here, this is where one answer would look like, but we can have any of the answers here. So this answer, which is given by the exam board, is if we've done qualitative research, we will find out what the customers like about the product. So we'll find out opinions about the product. That's what qualitative data gives us. This will allow the business to change the product design so the customers will pay more or buy more. Again, it's a very similar answer, even though they were asking something different because they were asking about qualitative research. But essentially, whatever type of market research it is, it's about finding out what the customers want, changing it, and then they will buy more of it. But it's about answering the question. Okay, so in this case, they referenced qualitative at the beginning. They talked about products that Apple sold, and then they talk about customers paying more. Now, for me, there needs to be something in the question, in the answer, that's got context in it. And in this one says here, do not award if it just refers to Apple. There has to be some reference to quantitative data or the Apple context, and in which case there was a reference to the qualitative data here. I would have also tried to make sure that if you're talking about a business, say, mention what they sell, so that the customers will pay more for telephones, and then you're guaranteed to pick up the context mark. These are just some questions that we did once upon a time in my class. Could be the kind of question that you could expect to see. No mark schemes for these, but just have a think about how you'd maybe answer these questions. So next we're looking at product trial and repeat purchase. Product trial, getting people to buy it for the first time. Repeat purchase, getting them to buy it again and again. Product trial, so these are the ways that we can get product trial. These come from previous mark schemes. There are other ways, but these are the ways that I've taught all my classes, and these are the ones I'd be trying to remember if I was doing the exams. Celebrity endorsement is something that's come up again and again in the exam, in a variety of different formats, whether it's with a marketing mix or a product trial. So product trial, well, how can you get people to buy it for the first time? Well, all of these would work, but these are quite specific. Free samples, getting someone to try it before they go purchase it. Lower prices to get people hooked on, interested, and you could just sell in more places. The repeat purchase, there's lots more methods to get repeat purchase, and again, it could be promotion, advertising, lower prices. So a lot of them are the same on both lists, but I quite like loyalty cards. Loyalty cards is a very specific way to get people to repeat purchase, because in order for the loyalty to pay off, you have to have been back more than once. But again, lots of the similar answers to the ones on the product trial. So this question's in context. It's about a business that makes milkshakes, and it was, how could you encourage people to want to try your product for the first time? And it's about milkshakes. So give yourself a minute to have a think about that. What would be your starting point, and how would you develop that answer? So the ones that we've just talked about, advertising, free samples, lower prices, loyalty cards, but it's a milkshake. You could lower the prices, and in the case study above, there was quite a lot of context about how, which you didn't see, there was quite a lot of context about how much it was, and it was $11.95. So lowering the price would probably be a good idea. But for any sort of food orientated thing, free samples would have been a good answer too. But as we can see, lower prices make the milkshake more attractive, therefore people will try the product. Try and write in 3 distinct sentences. This example here isn't. It is one giant sentence. I would always try and avoid that and try and write in 3 separate sentences to make it very easy for the examiner to see that that's what you're doing. So now we're on to the product life cycle. Introduction, growth, maturity, decline. If you want to pause the video, we'll give you the definition for each of them. If you want to pause the video, you can do that now. So there's your definitions. Again, give yourself a second to pause this, have a look at the definitions, make sure you're aware of what they are. In goal, men dive is a good way to try and remember. One typical way that they could examine this is to show you the graph and then ask you to fill out phase 4, which would in this case be D for in goal, men dive, which would actually be decline. So our product life cycle looks like this. So I think I took this picture directly from my previous exam. So this is what you could expect to see in a product life cycle. And the product life cycle describes how a product is introduced. So November 07, the iPhone, the first ever iPhone, was introduced. By December 07, it was in the growth phase. People were telling each other before Christmas. People had had them for a couple of months. People would see them about in friendship groups. And then by the May of that year, the following year, sorry, May 08, everyone was talking about it. It was big news. People had all seen them up at offices and workplaces and families up and down the country. It was, a completely new technology, but by this point everyone had seen them, and everyone who wanted one was starting to buy one. What we didn't know at the time, I suppose, when we were buying them at that stage, was that sales would start to decline because everyone who'd wanted one had started to buy one. So by November of that year, the sales had started to decline, but part of the reason for that was because they brought out the second iteration. A new product was brought out at that point. Now, labeling the phases, being able to define them, and putting the products in the correct phase are 3 things which are important for product life cycle. So please make sure that you can do that before you come to the exam on the Wednesday. So once a product starts to go into decline, it's really important that an organization can try and maximize the money that they have invested into that product to get it launched through the introduction phase, through the growth phase. And so once it's in decline, they really need to look for ways to try and keep that product selling. And this is probably where some of the bigger marks will come from in the exam, is to look at ways in which a business can keep the number of products being sold high, even when the technology is starting to come to the end of its life and people who've purchased it have already decided to move on to the next thing. So it's a pretty straightforward list. How would you get people to keep on buying things? Advertise it. So as it starts to come towards the end of its life, just make people aware of it again. Maybe people who were not early adopters will come in and buy them. Price reduction. As soon as, if we think about technology, if we think about fashion, the thing that we do as products start to go out of fashion and start to move on is just reduce the price, and people will purchase it because there's a lot of people who are waiting for that price reduction before they start to buy. You could add value, you could change features, introduce on a mobile, say you could bring out a new software update to make the phone slightly better, slightly faster. You could explore new markets, so look to see where else you could sell that product. So it might be that you look for a different segment, so maybe a different age group, change the advertising, change something, packaging about the product in order to get other people to buy. Or alternatively, you could look to sell in different places around the world. And as I've just said, I've already talked about, is potentially just changing the packaging. The key thing to think about when we are talking about the product life cycle is the cost of the extension strategies, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So if you want to have a look at this question, see what your answer would be, pause the video while you think about it, and then we'll come with the mark scheme in a second. So this is the mark scheme. Ways that you could have extended the life cycle. It's the list that we've already sort of talked about there, changing something within the 4 Ps or updating the product, and they're just a point in the development. Business could change its advertising. This will persuade more people to buy. This was a question that I did with some of the students in my lesson to get them to think. It's one of the 6 mark option questions. A really good way to answer this question is 1 paragraph about why option 1 would work, 1 paragraph about why option 2 would work, and then a conclusion. But when we're talking about product life cycle, in essence, it links back to cash flow. So money coming into and money going out of the business. Now, cash flow and the product life cycle are linked, inextricably linked. When we start, before we've even introduced the product, there might be millions of pounds worth of research and development, scientific research which helps us come up with the product. Therefore, the salaries, all that research, it's just money pouring out the business. Then we will start to see in the introduction and growth, again, money pouring out of the business, expensive advertising costs, all outflows. And we'll see this negative cash flow because there's less money coming in than there's going out. But we will start to receive inflows, but not enough. People will start buying the products, but we still won't ever see enough inflows. And so even through the growth phase, it's likely that we'll have negative cash flow, more money going out of the business than coming in. But then as we start to get to the top of the growth phase and moving into the maturity phase, we'll start to see, or hopefully start to see, more money coming into the business than going out. And even in the decline phase, we'll start to see a positive cash flow because all of those expensive advertising costs, all of them making people aware, have started to disappear. Therefore, even your factories might be making them more productively, less mistakes. You might have found cheaper supplies, more efficient ways to produce your products. But the key is that by the time we've got to maturity, and even in decline phase, we're trying to hold on to decline because we're not spending money on trying to advertise the product or on vast salaries researching and find out about the product. That's already been done. And so we're trying to keep on to sales for as long as we can do because it's positive cash flow. So as an A-star evaluation, when you're considering, you have to consider the cost. So for example, let's say the fidget spinner. The fidget spinner had a really quick introduction, growth, maturity, and then started to decline really quickly. Now, the fidget spinners which were being sold for, at the height, as much as maybe 10 quid in some places, but then towards the decline, the price started to come down, and that was the strategy that tended to be adopted, was to reduce the price. There would be no point in bringing out a huge advertising campaign in order to extend the life of the fidget spinner. That just wouldn't be value for money. Whereas if it was, say for example, a 3D television like we were just talking about there, then maybe towards the end of its life some sort of national television campaign might be financially worth it. Or if it's a car, for example, a high value item, then maybe spending a significant amount of money in some way either to change the product or to promote it in a different way might be worth it to try and get that extension strategy. But if it's a low value item, then the extension strategy that you suggest or choose has to be low cost. When we're writing about the product life cycle, again, this was just something that we did with my class to have a think about, but if you can answer these questions, then you've obviously listened to the last bit pretty well. A question which came up a couple of years ago about how you move, how cash flow changes from introduction to maturity. Again, if you can answer this question, then the last section probably made sense to you. If not, maybe watch it again, because it is explicit on the specification that you understand the link between cash flow and product life cycle. And there's that mark scheme. Changes in cash flow, negative cash flow in the introduction phases. Growth phase, it starts to become, cash flow starts to change potentially. And then the maturity phase, we're into that section where the promotion costs will fall and we should start to make a bit more money. Branding, a named product that a consumer sees as being different from others, which they can identify and associate with. So when we're thinking about branding, there's our definition of branding. And what we're talking about is the advantage of branding. So my bullet points underneath are the advantage of having a good brand. Any of these could start an answer. So for example, brands encourage customer loyalty because the customers see them as different to other products. Therefore they want to be associated with certain brands, and this might lead to more sales. So if we have a look, why is a strong brand important to Apple? So thinking about what was on the previous slide, you might just want to go back, have a go at, think about how you'd answer this question. And the mark scheme, branding allows Apple to differentiate, really good word. This makes its products such as iPod stand out from its competitors. So perfect there, great user context, talking about what the business sells, and this can lead to an increase in sales. So an advantage of branding, this is a non-context question, there is no business named in the question. And we can see our possible answers there. Again, the reason for branding might get people perceived higher quality, and this is a generic answer. Higher prices, better product, or people perceive it to be a better product, therefore they'll pay more. Differentiation. So when there are increased levels of competition, it's more important than ever to try and differentiate your product from those of your rivals. And the way that we can differentiate, or some of the ways that we can differentiate are to change features, change packaging, or create a unique selling point. But to differentiate is to make our product different from our rivals. Question from a couple of years ago, how can EasyJet differentiate its service from that of other airlines? Now the key here is other airlines. Oops. And so, answers that it was looking for with things like faster service, shorter check-in times. Now I'm just going to shoot back a second. Change features, change packaging. Change features for an airline would be the things that the airline can specifically do. It wanted the answer in context, and that was what was really important about this question. So could offer free meals. This would mean that people feel they're getting better value for money. They could also offer more legroom. There were two separate points, and because it was a describe question, that allowed them to put in two separate points. If it was an explain, you can only make 1 point and develop it twice. Final thing, product life cycle, marketing mix. The marketing mix, we've got hopefully, if you're in my classes, you should know what price, product, place and promotion is, and you should also understand what each bit is. So price can be things such as discounts, how much you sell it for, the list price. It could also be things for the product, such as what it does, its brand. For the promotion, it could be advertising, sales promotion, and for place, it could be the channel, how you get it to the customer. Are you selling it online? Are you selling it in store? A typical sort of 6-mark option question, a choice question. Which of the two options is most effective? So effectively for this, you want 3 marks for option 1, 3 marks for option 2, and then a little conclusion as to which you think is the best. So you explain them both as being the best, and then you do a little conclusion to go with it. So if you want to have a little look at that, have a think about how you'd answer that. And then these were the things. Option 1, it would increase consumer awareness of Pepsi. Option 2, some of the advantages could be it represented better value for money. A paragraph on each as being positive, and then a little conclusion should score you 5 or 6 marks quite easily in the exam. Now, the marketing mix question has come up again and again and again. And before you even have a think about this question, in order to successfully answer a marketing mix question, they will normally give you a scenario, and they will say the product is the most important, or the price is the most important, or the place is the most important. Your job is to agree. Yes, of course, for mulberry bags, giving celebrities free bags is important because it will lead to, as a result of this, and you really pile into that first paragraph and give all the reasons why giving away celebrity bags, giving free bags to celebrities is a genius suggestion. Agree with the examiner, and that goes for all the 10 markers. Agree with the examiner. Then you follow it up with other things that could be at least as important. Now with the marketing mix question, it's really easy because they're saying promotion is important, giving the bags away to celebrities. Your next paragraph for something like Mulberry is obviously going to be, well, actually, no, it's the product. You can give away free bags all day long, but actually, if the product is no good, it's the product that will get people interested because the quality of the product's good, and this will lead to. Or maybe it's the price. Maybe you would argue that actually it's nothing to do with the celebrities, it's nothing to do with the quality of the product, it's the price of the product. If you pitch the product at the right price, people will perceive it to be of a higher quality, and therefore that will automatically lead to people buying more, maybe. And once you've looked at least a couple of the other P's, you can then conclude and say which you think. You might come back and agree with the examiner that giving away celebrities is the most important, or you may pick one of your other choices. But the 10 marker is all about agree with the examiner, then look at other aspects of business. Now, the one thing I would say here is you don't always just have to look at the marketing mix. In this case, give celebrities free bags is the most important thing for Mulberry. You might have a paragraph in there after you've agreed with them which says, well, actually, the motivation of workers or the ethics of the business is more important. Using your knowledge of business is a key to tell you to think about all of the stuff that you know. A few years ago, there was the just-in-time question. Should a business use just-in-time? And pretty much everyone argued just-in-time is great because, and just-in-case is great because, and sort of explained and looked at the balance that way. But there was the possibility to say, well, actually, just-in-time is really, really important for a fashion business like Zara. But do you know what else is? Ethics. Very popular at the moment, and therefore the way that they look after workers is probably more important than just-in-time. But most people just went just-in-time, just-in-case, in exactly the same way as marketing mix. People will go price, product, place, promotion. But you do have the potential to look at using your knowledge of business, look at other aspects. But the 10 mark is straightforward. Really give them everything you know about agreeing with them, and then look for some balance. Offer an alternative point of view using anything that you've learned from your course. Now that is the end of this short video. I'll try and get a couple more up within the next couple of days. I hope you find this one useful, and the very best of luck with your exam on the 6th of June.